I am today starting the process of terminating the diversity lottery program. Diversity and diversity lottery. Diversity lottery sounds nice. It's not nice. It's not good. We need quick justice and we need strong justice. Much quicker and much stronger than we have right now. Because what we have right now is a joke and it's a laughing stock.
Mr. President, do you want the assailant from New York sent to Gitmo? Mr. President?
I would certainly consider that, yes.
Are you considering that now, sir?
I would certainly consider that.
Are you?
Send him to Gitmo. I would certainly consider that, yes.
That was the president less than 24 hours after a terrorist killed 8 people in New York City. Today, he proposed changes to immigration policy, attacked the Senate Minority Leader, insulted the justice system, and said he'd consider sending a suspect who reportedly has a green card to Guantanamo Bay. That suspect, Sayfullo Saipov, now faces federal terrorism charges. He moved to the U.S. from Uzbekistan in 2010. He's accused of renting a truck and running over cyclists and pedestrians on a lower Manhattan bike path in the name of ISIS. He told the FBI he's been studying ISIS videos, and his intent was to kill as many people as possible. Joining me now is Vivian Salama, NBC News national political reporter, Sean Henry, former executive assistant director at the FBI and an NBC News analyst, and Charlie Sykes, longtime conservative radio host, author, and an MSNBC contributor, also on his second date with me for the day. So cut him some slack. Vivian, let me start with you and any late reporting you have on where the investigation stands and what strikes you from the president's response to it thus far.
Well, the president's response is obviously something that's been very systematic with the president in terms of lashing out at the immigration policies of our country, and particularly admitting people from overseas, especially from Muslim-majority countries, something that he has been very much against and very suspicious of since the beginning of his presidency, since his campaign, actually. And so what we saw today is the president coming out and sort of out of the blue calling attention again to extreme vetting, saying that we need to get tougher on it, and then again proposing that we look into this diversity visa program. That triggered a number of responses from Capitol Hill, specifically from Chuck Schumer, who said that the president is really politicizing this issue, and he's really dropping the ball on a number of counterterrorism measures that should be taken into consideration that this administration is proposing to cut as a part of its budget proposal. And so there are a number of FEMA-related programs, specifically grants that that are specifically designed for counterterrorism, that this budget proposes to cut. And so here we have this suspect with a green card who the president is now looking at to use it as an example of why we need to get tougher on admitting some of these people into the country. And so it's a very, very contentious subject. There's a lot of legal implications, which the president, we're not sure how the extent to which he's been briefed on it, or if he's just sort of shooting from the hip and proposing these things on the fly. That remains to be seen, but definitely some legal questions, as well as some ethical, diversity, racial issues that are coming along with it.
Sean, let me ask you about the scenario itself. I mean, I was on the air in the hour after it happened, and people were sort of saying under their breath, and NBC was very cautious not to report anything until we had it from 2 and 3 and 4 law enforcement sources, but that this looked like Nice, this looked like Barcelona, and I know from counterterror folks that this scenario of a lone wolf, self-radicalized on the internet with a weapon as readily available as a vehicle is the nightmare scenario.
I think that's exactly right. It's for the very reason that you suggested. People are being radicalized online. ISIS is reaching out into people's living rooms and their basements, looking for disenfranchised people, people who are susceptible to this type of manipulation, and they're telling them to use any weapon available to go out and create as much harm and havoc and kill as many of the infidels as possible. The vehicle is the perfect weapon, and we've seen this happen time and time again throughout the Western world in the last few years. This has all the hallmarks of an ISIS-inspired event. And this guy says he's confessed to the FBI, according to the complaint that I read, that he was inspired by ISIS. He's been looking at ISIS. There are more than 90 videos on his phone. There are dozens and dozens of searches. There's thousands of ISIS photographs. So clearly he was engaged. He was radicalized by ISIS to create this havoc throughout the city of New York.
Charlie, let's turn to the president's response. There's a whole range of normal things to do. President Bush, President Clinton, and President Obama all had different approaches. They all dealt with terror attacks and mass tragedies on their watches. But in my quick cursory glance, I didn't find anyone who attacked the Senate Minority Leader on Twitter. I didn't find anybody who called the American justice system a laughingstock or a joke in the 12 hours after terror attack. And I didn't find anyone who didn't find it an urgent priority to have some display of empathy or some display. There were 5 Argentinians killed in an attack in our country. We are the host country in which 5 Argentinians were killed. A president might have considered a trip to the embassy in Washington, maybe to sign a condolence book or some other gesture. Can you just talk about not just what Americans woke up to today, but what the world saw from 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue this morning?
Well, I really did think yesterday, you know, how far we've come from 9/11, where President George W. Bush came out and made that a moment of national purpose and national unity, and then what we saw this morning with the tweet attack. You know, it's not just that Donald Trump cannot resist lashing out, cannot resist having a fight.
But no one had attacked him yet. I mean, who was he lashing out at?
He doesn't seem to understand just the fundamental role of the President of the United States.
Right.
And after we talked earlier today, I was talking with a Muslim American immigrant who'd been here for 25 years. And what he said, he was very upset about this. And he said, you know, it's going to get very, very difficult for me now because the president of this country is turning us against one another. He's basically now using this as an excuse to demonize all of us of a certain faith, all immigrants. Look, the diversity program has been around for a very long time. 1 million people have come in on all of this. And yet the president has decided that he's going to make this a wedge issue at a moment where, as you point out, empathy would have gone an awful long way. And this is the one thing that really strikes me about the president. We can talk about him not being presidential or his contempt for the rule of law that he expressed, but there's also just a kind of a fundamental decency that people in his hometown have been killed. There is a human tragedy. And he used this as an excuse to lash out at the senator from this state where this tragedy took place. This is not normal. This is not something that we should just, you know, put in the box of, you know, presidential reactions. This is disturbing.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.